So I got a complaint from my dog. He just wasn't happy. He said to me, I don't like the way that I'm being treated. And I said, well, have you considered providing a little bit more support? Maybe some more emotional support. Hi, I'm Bobby Jankovic. I'm the broker at Remax Capital. And did you know that service animals, emotional support service animals, are not seen as pets in the eyes of the law, especially when it comes to property management? So I didn't really get a complaint from my dog, but I did hear a very fascinating podcast from the Virginia Legal Hotline from Virginia Realtors. It's called Caveat Emptor. You don't have to be a realtor to listen to it. So I encourage anybody that's interested in mental health or property management, whether you're going to be a landlord or if you're involved in property management, to listen to this podcast, because what I learned is that the request of and the service animal does not need any type of certification. It needs that the tenant who is saying that they need the support animal does need to provide some sort of letter from a doctor or a mental health provider that they need the pet for emotional support. And I'm not going to really get into that because it's not really my job. I'm certainly not an attorney, and you should discuss this with your broker, and encourage you to share it with your broker and listen to it with them. But the request for this to bring a service animal into a property is a reasonable accommodation, as would be the establishment of a ramp or widening of a doorway for somebody who might not be able to handle stairs or might be in a wheelchair. So the service animal is a reasonable accommodation request, and therefore the landlord has to give it serious consideration and allow it unless there is undue financial or administrative burden imposed by that. I can't really think of something that would cause that. Maybe, say for instance, it's a duplex. I live in one half and I operate a daycare, and the service animal, is somehow a threat to the business or something like that. I'm really stretching there, but in most cases, the landlord is going to be required to consider the service animal as a reasonable request. So part of that might be checking with your insurance company as a landlord and say that your insurance company says, no, we don't allow Cujo breed under your insurance policy. Well, that would potentially represent an undue financial burden or administrative nightmare for the landlord, because they would lose their insurance, and that could pose all sorts of problems. But then the landlord has the obligation to go back and say, well, yes, I understand you generally don't allow that, but did you understand that this is a reasonable accommodation request under Virginia Fair Housing Law, and would you reconsider? If the insurer still maintains no, that they won't allow the pet, then it really doesn't stop there. The landlord really should continue to seek the opinion of seek alternate insurance, and maybe find an insurer who does. And the legal hotline didn't recommend a number, but they did say that the more people that you check with, the better it would be to hopefully find an insurer who would cover the service animal, formerly referred to as Cujo. And I'm just saying that for a little bit of fun. The other thing that I learned is that you're, as a landlord, you're not allowed to require deposit or any additional pet rent for a service animal, whereas a pet you can. So you can charge a higher deposit, but it must be the same higher deposit that you would charge anybody. You can't treat somebody with a mental health situation any differently. That would not be fair under Virginia legal housing law. And I'm sensitive to this, because I have people in my family who have suffered from mental health. And if a service animal would have provided a meaningful difference, that would have been so frustrating to know that there's a potential landlord out there that wouldn't allow that, And so I'm a landlord too, and I understand that side of it. So I kind of have a foot in all worlds here in this discussion. But My sentiment to you is, if you're a landlord and you don't want to deal with service animal requests, you probably ought to consider an exit strategy, because you're not going to be questioning the pet or the service animal. You're gonna be in a position where you have to look at the person's request as a reasonable request. And if somebody is abusing that law, then shame on them. And hopefully there is an arm of the law that will deal with them. One thing that you can do, though, is you can make regular visits to the house to make sure there's no damage being done by the service animal. The tenants are still obligated to repair any damages. So good records of the condition of the property are going to be very important. And, you don't want to wait 12 months to find out that there's damage, because once the person moves out, it's always harder to recover the damages. Sometimes it involves court, a judgment, and garnishment. So we don't want to ever get to that, but you can get way ahead of that if you're doing, say, quarterly visits or something such as this. Thanks for joining me on Mission Forge, and I hope you know a little bit more than you did. And please don't take my word for it, because I'm not an attorney. Get a legal opinion on this, and certainly talk to your broker about this if you're in property management.